Hello, everybody. Louise Eddington, Cosmic Owl of Cosmic Owl Astrology, with my bruised face from um, dental surgery. It doesn't hurt, it's getting better. It looks far worse than it is. So I'm here today to talk to you about Jupiter going retrograde, and we'll look at that in a minute. But first of all, Jupiter goes retrograde on, bear with me 1 second. Jupiter will go retrograde on October the 9th at 21 degrees Gemini and will be retrograde till February the 4th, 2025 at 11 degrees Gemini. I'm probably going to do separate recordings about the presidential candidates and this Jupiter retrograde, because they've both got very strong Gemini energy. But this one will just be about the retrograde, and we'll look back at the last Jupiter retrograde in Gemini and just talk to you about what it might mean, how long it's going to be there, what area of the chart it covers. We'll show you all of that, okay? But first of all, before I do, and while I shuffle and pull a tarot card for this Jupiter retrograde in Gemini, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, hit the little bell, you'll get notified. And leave me a comment. All of this helps the Al Gore rhythm. You know, Mr. Al Gore, Mr. Climate Change, that one. Also, if you ever, don't get a chance to watch it all, if you could turn the volume down and leave it running, that really also helps the Al Gore too. So let's pull a card. By the way, Jupiter is my ruling planet. I am very much Jupiter's daughter. If you don't know, the reason my business is named Cosmic Owl Astrology is because asteroid Pallas Athena is exactly conjunct Jupiter, and Pallas Athena was Jupiter's daughter. And I've always loved owls as well, before I even knew that. So, so Jupiter's, I'm very, very connected to Jupiter. So there you go. Everything I do is informed by astrology in one way or another. Just realized I am behind on my calendar. I must edit that, must move that over, but oh, this is funny. This is funny. And I will explain why in a minute. I also recorded the next full moon podcast that's coming, the full moon that's coming up on October the 17th. And the card I pulled from my favorite tarot deck was the Prince of Swords. And Gemini is a sword sign, because this card is all the air signs. But this one I pulled reversed. Can't believe I pulled the same card as well. So I go to my book, The Complete Guide to Tarot and Astrology, link available in my Amazon store if you want to go and get it out. But this one is lack of focus, lack of tact, a vicious attitude, and arrogance. These are potentials because Jupiter, well, let's talk first about Jupiter in Gemini, and then we'll talk about the retrograde and the dates and when it was last. Jupiter in Gemini is very social, more friends, larger social media presence, very active in social spaces, events, meeting new people. Jupiter in Gemini is very much about sharing your thoughts and feelings, but it's also about seeing the bigger picture, big perspectives. And Jupiter in Gemini is also about very curious, have a big drive to learn new things. And there could be expansion in relationships with Jupiter and Gemini, and a lot of mental stimulation and intellectual conversations. Also very adaptable is Jupiter in Gemini. It does have its shadow though, and I think this retrograde, as indicated by this very card, is a warning about this. Jupiter and Gemini, when it's retrograde and going back over things, may be where you need to look at where there's information overload, where you like put yourself too thin by trying to take it all in, all right? Or also look at where you've perhaps been rather superficial, because Jupiter can be a bit of a Santa Clausy, jovial kind of fun energy, but also can be rather kind of flirty and superficial, shallow. And Gemini can be quite a shallow sign too. So, this one being retrograde, that's really interesting. You saw me shuffling while I was doing all of that. Um, I don't think there's anything else to say about it, really. And this is not going to be the longest video, by the way, as well. But I'm going to share the chart because Jupiter spends about a year in each sign. Okay, it takes 12 years to go around the zodiac. We'll have Jupiter returns every 12 years, where Jupiter returns back to where it was when you were born. And last time Jupiter went retrograde in the sign of Gemini was in October too. It was on October the 4th, 2012. Well, 2012, I think everybody pretty much remembers 2012. For me, it's the Jupiter return of my astrology professional paid business, really. I can't remember the exact date at this moment, but I do know that really kind of I decided in 2011, but I didn't really kind of launch on social media and start really kind of offering paid readings formally until 2012. So my business is a Jupiter return length busy. Now, what happened in 2012? Well, most people know it was supposed to be, like the Mayan big shift or something, and there was a lot of things, but let's have a look at some of the actual events of history. And particularly while Jupiter was retrograde, so after October the 4th, and when we'll look into early 2013 too. But earlier in 2012, the 8th century St. Cuthbert Gospel, Europe's oldest intact book, was purchased by the British Library for £9 million. That's huge because Gemini, reading, communication, books, Jupiter, expansive, big numbers, £9 million. Then, July the 10th, the American Episcopal Church became the first to approve a right for blessing gay marriages. Gemini is very much about partnership as well. And Jupiter kind of is, as I mentioned, kind of a bit like Santa Claus, so blessings. Kim Jong-un was appointed supreme leader in North Korea. But then after Jupiter went retrograde, scientists detected evidence of light from the universe's first stars predicted to have formed 5 million years after the Big Bang. And of course, anybody that knows anything about that kind of detection, it was probably things that no longer exist, because by the time they kind of get to us, all of that kind of energy has died out by the time that light gets to us. But isn't that really interesting that kind of that was coming from so far out, kind of communicating with us while Jupiter was retrograde? I'm just going to go a little bit deeper towards the end of 2012. Then we'll go into 2013, because Jupiter, to go back to the astrology, went retrograde at 16 Gemini and traveled all the way back to 6 Gemini, so it travels about 10 degrees, and that was on January the 30th, 2013. So we'll look at events then as well. So I actually just want highlights, I think. So highlights in 2012. No, I read them all for you. So let's go into seeing what happened at the end of that retrograde. Calcium deposits discovered on Mars. So, that's exploration, curiosity. And incidentally, they were discovered by NASA's Curiosity rover, and Gemini is curious. Okay, so that's wild, right? And then that's all that happened during the retrograde. Pope Benedict resigned or announced resignation after Jupiter turned direct, and Jupiter's kind of very much connected with the Pope as well. So you can see that, the Gemini and expansive and Santa Clausian themes were kind of very up during that retrograde. So, but no retrogrades are exactly the same. So let's just have a look at when Jupiter went retrograde, like that October the 4th, 16 degrees, posing Pholus. Take the lid off it, Pandora's box. Not aspecting a huge amount in the chart, to be quite honest. So, but I think it did kind of reveal things, and interesting that it came from Sagittarius, where the galactic center is like new information, big new information coming in, particularly about like Mars calcium deposits, but also um, the discovery of kind of things that are coming from far outer space. So you can see that. And now we'll look at the chart for when Venus stationed direct later, January the 30th, 2013, at 6 Gemini. And so let's have a look. Not really aspecting loads of stuff, except Chiron. Chiron was square to Chiron. So, 2012, 13, everybody had a lot of hope for the future. The Mayans said it was a special year and all that kind of stuff. You can look at the history yourself as well, just to kind of jog your memory. I wanted you to kind of think back for yourself, really, which is why I go through the actual history in the world, because, it kind of jogs your memory and goes, oh, that's where I was. Yeah, that's what was happening then. So now to today. Jupiter is going all the way to 20 degrees, 21 degrees of Gemini this time, and is going to station retrograde on October the 9th at 21 degrees, opposing my Sun, actually, but also in an exact almost square to Vesta, the hearth, focus and commitment in Virgo, about doing the right thing. Now, last time Jupiter stationed direct in Gemini, it was in a conjunction with Chiron, and now it's in a sextile, making this really quite nice pattern here. Vesta and Chiron are in an aspect of adjustment, a quincunx, and this is driving change and driving it towards Virgo of becoming that more focused, committed, doing meaningful right work, that kind of energy. Also, though, Jupiter will be stationing retrograde in an almost exact air trine to Juno and Mercury in Libra. So there's a lot to think about there, that a lot that's going to be reviewed about connection, partnership, relationships, how we work with each other, how we serve each other, and our part in it, Chiron in Aries. Now, just a little bit earlier, before the Jupiter station retrograde, the moon's in Sagittarius and going to oppose it too. And so, there's a lot of new truths going to be discovered as while Jupiter's retrograde, for sure. a lot uncovered, but some of it's going to be from the past, some of it's going to be this new information, some of it is going to kind of rock boats a little bit, but also bring these opportunities to change and to kind of do Jupiter and Gemini in a healthier way and adapt and open your mind, bring in new perceptions. Jupiter will station direct next year on February the 4th. So you can see it's shifted a little bit, not only forward in degrees, but also in dates. So, but it's still 10 degrees. So if you remember, Jupiter stationed retrograde at 21 degrees Gemini. Well, Jupiter will station direct on February the 4th after the inauguration in the US at 11 degrees, and 11 new beginnings, gateways, new starts. We keep getting those numbers come up. Now then, let's look at some of the aspects for this. Well, it's Jupiter's over here, and now is going to be in a quincunx with Vesta in Scorpio, another aspect of adjustment, saying go deep, get meaningful, get intense connections, stop being such a social butterfly, and build more meaningful and intimate connections. Jupiter's also going to be in a lovely air trine to Mercury and the Sun, who are close to a cazimi. Mercury's under the beams, but in Aquarius. And so that's kind of a nice aspect too, because there's going to be a lot of future visioning, a lot of hopes and wishes for the future coming from that Jupiter stationing direct. I'm going to read you the symbols for that station direct in a minute. I don't think there's many other aspects except that Jupiter will also... Oh, it's a yod to Jupiter from Pholus. Remember 2012? Jupiter stationed opposing Pholus. Well, now look at this, the quincunx, Pholus and Vesta in a sextile to each other, focus, commitment, and devotion, and Pandora's box lifting it off, pointing at Jupiter, this new way forward, this gateway of this master teacher number. It's perhaps more about stopping kind of the information soak and teaching what you know, because you know enough, to be quite honest. Now, I'm just called to look at the Sabian symbol. I'm not going to do the Chandra symbols. I probably write about them in my Substack blog at the time as well. I'm not going to read them all out. But, you know, I bring you back to the card again, that Princess of Swords. Because she was retrograde, that's what you're going to reflect on in the retrograde. But then moving forward, she's kind of like cutting into the truth and kind of revealing the truth to move forward. Okay. So Sabian 22 Gemini. Bear with me. So Sabian 22 Gemini is a barn dance. So this is about seeing a change of partners. If you think about how, you know, barn dance, you're always kind of do-si-doing with a different person. And the theme, according to Blaine Bovey, is change up, about changing partners, changing positions. I think that's going to be a big thing of the Jupiter retrograde. We're going to see a lot of people changing partners, changing positions, changing alliances, changing perceptions, all of that. So now let's look at the Sabian for the station direct. And make the most of this, you know, because Jupiter will only be in Gemini for, you know, won't be back again for another 12 years. So wherever Gemini is in your chart, think back to that end of 2012, early 2013. What was happening in your life? What were you creating? What were you talking about? What were you writing about? I obviously know because it was my business. And Gemini is quite, the nuts and bolts of the speaking and the business. Think back for yourself, though. Where was it in your chart? Mine's in the sixth house, which is how I serve others. So, you cannot make these things up sometimes. And of course, this is in my sixth house again. So I do wonder if something is going to shift a little bit, but that's for me to know and you to find out eventually, I guess. And I don't know yet. All right, so Gemini 12, we always go up for the station direct, is a Topsy saucily asserting herself. And the theme is spiritual impudence. And the inspiration, according to Blaine Bovey, is speak out. A person must speak out to life with an almost spiritual impudence in order to have any character at all. So it's really it says, in order to maintain balance and harmony in the way things are done, one may be pressed to just fit in to go along. But the sage says it's only a matter of spicy integrity to speak out. So that's an interesting one, right? Okay, so let's have a quick look at what Dane Rudger had to say about this. So again, we go to 12 Gemini. He words it as a Negro girl fights for her independence in the city. He says liberation from the ghosts of the past. Gosh, they're very different, aren't they? But anyway, let's go with this one. Rudyard says, while newly opened lands theoretically offer virgin fields for experience, in fact, those men and women who reach them find themselves conditioned by their own past. They carry the ghosts of their former lives and the memories of collective social patterns with which they had identified their egos. Every new beginning is surrounded with ghosts or personal and social karma. The racial struggle for equality of opportunity must go on, even if this equality is officially guaranteed by the law. The struggle is within and takes many forms. The Puritans brought to the theoretically New World the fears, the fanaticism, and the aggressiveness of their European existence. And these often grew more virulent under the conditions found in the New World. But no field of activity is ever totally virgin. It has its inhabitants, and they cling to their possessions or privileges. Whoever seeks to be truly an individual must be liberated from the past. I will let you take what you want or what you need from this. But anyway, he kind of says at the end, the new lands are opened, but they are filled with lives, and the pioneer's mind filled with ghosts, preconceptions, and prejudices or expectations. What is needed is a total liquidation of the past. Virgin minds for virgin fields. Open-mindedness. 11 degrees, a gateway. New beginnings. Be open to completely new perspectives. Virgin fields, all right? And new beliefs, new perspectives, all those things. So I'm really kind of looking forward to this Jupiter retrograde. It's retrograding exactly opposing my sun and will retrograde direct, station direct, very close to my natal Jupiter in opposition. So it's pretty big for me. But what about you? Where is it for you? What happened in 2012, 2013 with Jupiter retrograde? What did you kind of launch, but also what were you reviewing from the past? Oh, can't wait till this all clears up, but it's getting better. And I remember in 2012, 2013, I had started teaching myself astrology in 1990, 89, 90. And I was reviewing everything from that time, the old charts, the old things, how far I'd come, what else I'd done in between, teaching myself and deciding to become a professional astrologer many years later. And so I know exactly what I was reviewing then. What will I be reviewing this time? What will you be reviewing this time as well? And watch out for the videos if you're interested about this Jupiter retrograde and the presidential candidates. I'm going to do a Pluto station video as well. And we've got that full moon coming up, and I'm going to look at all of that with the presidential candidates because we're only, is it 32 days from now or 31? But anyway, we're very close to the election, 32, I think. All right, see you next time. Peace, peace, peace out.